And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and welcome to the Dice Tower. Today we're taking a look at a game called Call to Adventure. Craft your hero, claim your destiny. This game looked really cool, and I was really intrigued with it because this game itself is a game that's going to be the basis for future games that are based in the Brandon Sanderson universe, Way of Kings, which is my favorite fantasy series of all time. So this is more of a generic fantasy setting, and in this game you are basically crafting a hero, picking a hero, and going through and having an adventure. So it's very story driven per se, and there's a lot of art inside, but how does the game play? Let's take a look. At the beginning of the game, you're going to build your character. So there are 3 decks of cards you'll do. You'll draw 2 cards from each deck. So I'll draw from the origins here. Am I a farmer or a pickpocket? Pickpocket sounds more exciting, so I'll place that one here. Then I'll draw 2 cards from the motivations deck. Am I pure of heart or born lucky? Oh, a pickpocket, so I would be born lucky. And then I'll pick my destiny, 2 cards from here, and pick one of them. Mighty Conqueror or the People's Champion? Oh no, I'm going to be the People's Champion. I start out a thief, but someday I will be great and marvelous. You also have a corruption track, which you'll start on over here, and then we'll set up the story decks, and you can start the game. Now I should mention before we go any farther how you're going to win the game. You're going to add experience points that you've collected over the course of the game. Plus, you're going to add points for the different numbers that are on these different cards. There's triumph and tragedy numbers. You can see this one here is 1 tragedy point. But maybe this pure of heart, if I had picked that, I would have started with 5 points in the triumph thing. So it's up to you what you're trying to get. You're trying to get points and put together a complete story. So here we have the story decks are split into 3 groups, 1, 2, and 3. Only the ones are placed face up at first. Everyone has to go through Act 1 before they can move to Act 2. So on a player's turn, they can gain a trait or attempt a challenge. Gaining a trait is pretty simple. You just take the trait. But there's usually requirements for the trait. So for example, if I want to take adventurous, it says you may only gain this if I have that symbol or I spend an experience point. Well, if you remember, I picked pickpocket and I have that symbol, so I could simply take that card and then I would tuck that card underneath my pickpocket card, and now I have some more symbols on my cards like that. Another thing you can do is you can attempt one of the challenges here. Now when you attempt a challenge, there's often 1 or 2 of the things on the challenge. So I might want to win a foe's loyalty or crush my rival. For each of these, there are different symbols that are going to be used. Over here it shows how many successes that I need and the possible symbols that I'll use depending on which one of these I'm going to do. When attempting a challenge, you're going to cast runes. Players will always cast these 3 basic runes here. And casting runes just basically means rolling the runes and seeing how many successes you've got. Here I simply got 1 success. However, here I get to draw a card, at least for doing this one. But that's not very good, and I need 4 successes. This is going to be difficult. There's a couple ways around it. I can spend experience points, and for up to 3 of them, and for each one add a dark rune. When I roll these dark runes in here, you can see now I got 4 successes. But if I had rolled the other side, these are actually 2 successes. This is 6 successes here that you can see. However, I also moved down 1 on the corruption track for each moon that I've rolled. Another way you can do it is maybe pick something that you're good at. So here, for example, Steal to Survive shows this symbol here, which is on my pickpocket card, if you remember. And so I get to roll a rune that matches that symbol in this regard. So when I roll these, I still only got 3, which is a failure. But this rune has a 1 on one side and the rune symbol is a 2 on the other side. And in fact, if you ever get 3 of these rune symbols, you'll get a special one which has another side that can do something. Like this one, for example, you can draw an anti-hero card when it gets rolled. And so the more symbols you have that match the cards that you're doing, the better the chance you have. If you fail, you get an experience, and your turn is over. If you succeed, you'll get the side of the card that you did. So if I said steal to survive, this is going to be a tragedy point, give me another one of those symbols. If I did forage for food, I would get this symbol plus that at the bottom. Cards are replaced then from the deck, and once you have gotten 3 cards, whether they're traits or things, you'll turn over the level 2s and you can start working on those. When you get 3 of those, you'll turn over the level 3s and start working on those. A couple other things in the game. There are cards that you will draw, and these cards are often determined where you are on the corruption track, and you'll notice the corruption track will give you points at the end of the game possibly, but will also allow you to play certain cards. So there's 2 different types of cards, hero and anti-hero cards. You'll be drawing these cards as the game goes by. When you play these cards, they're worth a point at the end of the game, and they'll do various things. Deny the darkness, move up 2 on the corruption, or pick another hero to go up 1 on the corruption. Play this before you do a challenge. Add an extra sword or this kind of rune to your attempt. And so there's all sorts of these, but the anti-hero ones are also can be negative. Play this after another hero has attempted a challenge. They must attempt it again, and now it's 1 harder. What a jerk. Choosing any hero to sacrifice an ally. If you sacrifice your own ally, get that and 2. So there's sorts of things. And you say, what are these allies you speak of? Well, you don't have to use these in the base game, but there can be allies who will show up. They'll make the test harder. They get put with a test, but if you succeed, you'll get a special ally that you can use. There's also big, nasty adversaries that can show up that players will have to fight against and try to defeat them. There's also a solo variant or a co-op variant where there's a card here which will show you'll be playing against one of those adversaries which I just showed you, and there's all sorts of different cards that are in here, quests and things for that variant. By far the coolest thing in this game is the art. So much original art here, and these arts tell a story. Child of the Dark Lord, tainted by dark magic, drive back a demon army, wield the sun's light, fight on the front lines, lead the rebels. I mean, this is like the big stuff from story 3. You get to these, but to get to that, you're like in the middle of these 2. In the second one, criminals solve a mystery, steal from the rich, and the artwork here is just absolutely stunning. I mean, almost every piece of art in this game, even the stuff in the beginning of the story, right? Find a lost child, harness dark power, mentor, escape your pursuers. All this stuff here, I would put on my wall. That's how good it looks. I would love to get some of this artwork. It's fantastic. And that artwork comes through even to the different hero and anti-hero cards. The tokens here, the experience tokens, they're kind of diagonal. I guess they're like diamonds. They're okay, and they stack on top of each other. And then there's the runes. They come in a tray like this, and the different runes have different sides. It will do various things. They're not amazing runes, right? They're good, but you can see mine are already getting a little dirty from use, and that's fine. I wish they were slightly heavier, but they're still pretty good. My only other complaint about these is that throwing runes is an interesting idea. It's just not as easy and convenient as rolling dice. But it still, kind of gives the game some sort of flavor to it. But there is just a ton. Even the starting cards, there's so many different starting cards that you'll have. It's going to feel like every game is very different. There's really a lot of content in the box. Now, there's no question that Call to Adventure is an incredibly light game. It's very, very simple. You pick 3 cards. You're going to get 9 more cards over the course of the game. You might fail a couple cards, and you probably will, actually, as time goes by. Get some experience and build up to get other cards, and then see how you score points. And there's those end game scorings, your destiny you pick, and sometimes your destiny really pushes you and says you don't get any tragedy points at the end of the game, so then you're like all focused on triumph points, or getting experience as the time goes by. Or you might go full-blown evil. But you're just trying to get cards that give you these matching things. As the game goes by, you're trying to collect cards that give you more symbols, that let you take on these challenges that give you more points at the end of the game. But again, like I said, it's pretty simple. Sometimes your turn is simply, I can take this trait and add it. I'm done. I can take this ally, I got it. Or, I'm sorry, I can beat this really simple challenge. Then the challenges get harder, but you're still throwing runes and mixing things together. And yet I like it. I like it because the art is so strong. I often talk about art in games and art good or bad, but in this game, the art has elevated the game better than I would normally give it a rating because the art brings that much of a story to the game. I can see the adventure in the art. This is some of the strongest art I've seen that makes a game better. And at the same time, the game itself is fun. You're just throwing some runes and collecting cards, and it's a very quick game. Now, it says 30 to 60 minutes, 1 to 4 players. I would recommend that you play with 2, 3 at max. 4 is fine, but you're not as invested in other people's stories as your own. You could just play it solo and have your own story where you go up against one of those evil adversaries. But it's not the kind of game I think when you play it, you're done, and you might want to play it in a week or two. It's not a game you want to play over and over again, but it is a game that almost feels like it's a pre-RPG where I could play this before a role-playing game and build my character a little bit, get my backstory going through this. So it's a neat little system. It's not complex, it's not pretentious, it's just throw some runes and see what happens. You could lose or win by luck, but along the way, you'll have crafted a very entertaining story that offers you some interesting decisions along the way. Do I want to spend some experience to do this? Do I want to go dark? Do I want to play these hero, anti-hero cards? Not a lot of choices, but enough, plus a great story to make a game fun. Dice Tower Judgment approved.